Okay, everyone, it is June 24th and it's 6:02, and we are about to start the Planning Advisory Board meeting. At this time, I will do a roll call. Lawrence Blevins,
Present.
Michael DePietro,
Present.
Edward Evans, Van Mason, Elizabeth Rossborg,
Present.
Megan Reiser,
Present.
and myself, Gus Kurtz. So with, let's see, 5 members, we do have a quorum. And we're going to start the meeting. At this time, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any nays? The agenda is approved. Next, a motion to approve the minutes from June 10th meeting.
So moved.
Seconded.
Is there a motion been made and second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion is approved. Minutes are approved. So at this time, the PAB will deliberate and do a recommendation for impact fees. And we will turn the meeting over to Ms. Lynn Miller at this time for a briefing. Ms. Miller, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Kurtz. Good evening to the planning board members. Lynn Miller here, Office of Planning and Zoning. I wanted to just go over some of the follow-up information that has been provided to the PAB since the hearing 2 weeks ago and allow you all to ask any questions about it. Let's see, first of all, we did provide a chart to you all at request from Mr. Kurtz, I believe, that demonstrates the impact fee schedules beginning in 2009 through the year 2027, which is the current year. Those are and I just wanted to offer one point of explanation about that. If, as you'll see in the chart, the first 3 years, there was a recalculation on a 6-month basis. And this is because January 2009 is when the new impact fee schedule was adopted based on the 2008 study. So those fees kicked in the beginning in January of 2009. But the code also requires an annual update based on the ENR construction cost index every July. So that's why in 2009, in the year 2009, you see a new fee in January and then an update in July. And that twice a year update occurred for 3 years. And that's because when the new fee schedule was adopted, that kicked in 2009, it was phased in over 3 years. So there were a new schedule in 2009, a bump up in 2010, another bump up in 2011. And then additionally, in each of those 3 years, there was a July adjustment based on the ENR cost index. So that's why the chart looks a little funny that way. Beginning in fiscal year 2012, which would have been July 1, 2011, from then on, we have not done a global update. So the updates there have just been that annual ENR cost index update. So I just wanted to offer that explanation.
Lynn, a question. There was a significant increase between 2010 and 2011. Was that because of recalculations, or were the impact fees at that time adjusted?
You're looking at between December 2010 and January 2011.
Yes.
Yeah,
It
that
went
was
from
like the big bump up. Yeah, so that was, I believe, the 3-year phase in was not an equal phase in each year. The largest increase came in the 3rd year, and that's why you see that larger increase.
So for a 3,000 square foot house, it went from, I have small print here, 4,800 or around $4,800 to 12,000. Okay.
Okay, so the second item that we sent you all since the hearing, I believe this was requested by Mr. DePietro, um, and he had asked to see what the amount of the fees collected for the different non-residential fee categories have been over the past 10 years. That we were not able to provide that complete information, but what I provided begins with year 2022 and it goes through 2026. So a little bit of explanation to go with that data. Prior to 2022, the Department of Inspections and Permits in the Budget Office only recorded impact fee data based on the total amount of fees collected each year by impact fee district. So in other words, we did not have database records that showed which of the different impact fee use categories those fees were collected within. So we could not go back 10 years and provide that data. In 2022, that's when inspections and permits initiated their transfer of their permit tracking system from the older PIP system to the newer and current LUN system, our Land Use Navigator system. So at that time, they started also including records to track the impact use category. So for that reason, we could only go back to 22 to provide that data. I'll also add the early years of that data, 2022, 2023, when we and our consultants were still transferring that many years of data over to this new Loom platform. There was a lot of troubleshooting and kinks being worked out during that period. So when we're doing a query now of data during that period, I have to say our confidence level in the data is probably not as high as desirable because it was a very massive transformation of multiple years of data from one platform to another. And there's a lot of complications involved when you do something like that. So just the other thing I'll point out in this table, you'll see for some years there's a line item that's blank and then it has a payment amount. And that's because the field with the impact use type wasn't filled in. And whether that was user error, whether that was something that happened through the data transformation, I can't really say, but there were some fields where that wasn't filled in. And then lastly, this query was done based only on non-residential building permits because we were trying to capture the non-residential impact use categories like industrial, mercantile, office. But for apartment developments, those permits in the permitting system, they're tracked as non-residential permits, and that's because they're not subject to the residential construction code. They're subject to the general construction code. So that's just a glitch, but when we do a query of non-residential building permits, we're going to pick up apartments, which in terms of impact fee use category, that's a residential use. But in terms of building permit queries, it's non-residential. And that's why you see that line item. So I just wanted to explain that in case he saw that and didn't understand what that meant.
I appreciate that because that was one of my questions. So thank you for explaining because the numbers definitely did not match up. Thank you.
Right. And again, this is only a query of those impact use categories that were non-residential. So this doesn't reflect impact fees collected for single family homes or townhomes. So if we're good with that, I can move on and try to speak to some of the follow-up questions that were received from Mr. DePietro, or actually this may have come from any of the PIB members. I'm not sure. There were 7 of them. Did you want me to walk through these, or did you want, I know that some responses were sent to you all, but I think you may not have gotten them till today, so I'm not sure whether you've read them or not.
Ms. Lynn, I did get a chance to look at them, and first off, thanks for getting all that data together for us in such a timely manner. I know that's a lot of work, but it is very helpful. If you wouldn't mind, please go through those 7 questions, and then after you go through your information, if we have any questions, we can speak up.
Okay, will do. So the first question, the PAB was asking if we had prepared any analysis regarding, excuse me, potential economic impacts of the fee increases, including effects on housing production, housing affordability, commercial development activity, employment, and future tax base growth. That's a lot. So I'll just say in general, no, we have not done that level of analysis. That's not something that we would have the capacity to do in-house. That, just based on that question, that is if that were to be done as a consultant study, that's an extremely large scope, and it would probably be a study that was even lengthier and more expensive than the impact fee study that we did. So understand it would be wonderful to have that level of analysis, but that's not something that we could provide really without initiating a whole new consultant contract and doing that level of analysis. I can say that when our consultants, Tischler Bice, were working with us on our study, they did provide some background studies that were done by some other consultants. And some of them were studies that were looking at, like, for example, the effect of eliminating impact fees and what that effect would be on building activity particularly during the recession period back in 2008. So while we have a few related studies, they're somewhat dated and older. So I'm not going to quote from those studies now. There are studies that that the conclusion is that there's no conclusive evidence that something like putting a moratorium on impact fees would increase development activity. But, I can probably say that if someone really wanted to do the research, you could probably find studies out there that argue both sides of impact fees, the benefits and the costs. And so, it's not our intent here to try to argue the merits or the pros and cons of impact fees. I mean, our intent here was specifically to develop a study to update our impact fee schedules, and that's what we did. So the second question was basically to provide such analysis if we had it, and we don't. The third question was asking if we had evaluated alternatives between the current fee structure and the maximum supportable fees that are presented in the Tischler Bice study. And the answer was no, we did not. That was beyond the scope of work for this study. This scope of work under this particular contract was specifically to develop maximum supportable fees based on existing levels of service. And so that's what was done. I think, we could have written a scope to analyze a range of different fees over a range of different levels of service. That would have been a larger study that would have cost more money, obviously, but that's not what we did. We had a certain amount of money to spend, and so we wrote the scope to develop maximum supportable fees, assuming current levels of service. So next question. was asked if the county had analyzed historical impact fee collections by land use category over the last 10 years. This relates to the spreadsheet that we provided to Mr. DePietro in response to his question. Again, we could not go back 10 years and do this, but we provided what we were able to query from our data from 2022 through 2026. The fifth question was, have we estimated how the proposed fee schedule would have affected impact fees collected if it had been applied over the last 5 to 10 years? No, again, that would be a very large undertaking to do that with any level of accuracy, because we would essentially have to go back and pull all the permits that had been approved over that time period, as well as the fee that each paid. We would have to recalculate a fee based on the new proposed maximum supportable fees. And we would essentially have to do that on a permit by permit basis to get any level of accuracy, because each fee is calculated, as you know, based on the size of the dwelling unit or the type of dwelling unit or the square feet of office space, or et cetera, et cetera. So that unfortunately would probably another analysis that we would have to hire a consultant to do for us, and it would be expensive and take a long time. So the sixth question, has the county evaluated our proposed fees compared with surrounding jurisdictions when considering both impact fees and development approval timelines? First of all, I'll just say regarding development approval timelines, I'm not sure why a change in the fee schedule would impact development review timelines, and I don't believe it would, because it's just a different fee amount that they're paying, but every other step in the development review and approval process is the same. So I don't think it would affect timelines. We have not recently done a comparison with other jurisdictions' impact fee structures. We did do one back in 2013, I believe, so I would not consider that current. I wouldn't want to use that data right now because we haven't compared it to other jurisdictions' current codes. I will say that also that can be done. That is not a real straightforward comparison to do, because every jurisdiction's fee structure is different. Some of them aren't even impact fees. Some counties have excise taxes or impact taxes, which are different from impact fees. Some of them have different fee categories. Some of their fees are calculated on different units of measurement. So it's definitely not an apples to apples comparison when we do that. We have to make certain assumptions and use various caveats to do that. So we haven't done one recently. And then lastly, the question was, has any analysis been performed regarding the relationship between development review timelines, impact fee levels, and overall housing production in the county? And again, we would not expect it to impact development review timelines. But other than that, no. This kind of relates to your first question about whether we had done this larger analysis of potential impacts of altering the fee schedule. That's really outside of our capacity to do that level of analysis. We don't have the ability to predict how a change in impact fees would change housing production, to what extent it would change home sales prices, or any, that is a whole nother level of study in itself, I believe. So that's my quick response to the questions sent over.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Miller. I have the first question I have is, can you give a explanation on when you look at impact fees, if they've been calculated for 18 years a certain way, and now we're going to add Rexham Park fee, library fee, separate some fees out. What is the reasoning for that?
But it's, well, the reasoning for proposing a library and a rec and park fee would be to have an additional revenue stream that would be targeted specifically to those related capital improvements, whether they be libraries or recreation and park facilities. So now our impact fees can't be used for those particular capital improvement projects. And so, again, it's a proposal. The decision will be up to the elected officials as to whether they want to incorporate those new fees. But it was examined, and per discussions with Department of Recreation and Parks and the county libraries, they did see a benefit to having this additional revenue stream that could help fund capital improvements. Again, as with all impact fees, these are capital improvements related to increased capacity needed to support new development.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up
Can
now
I-
to board members. Elizabeth?
Sorry, I just want to follow up on that actually, because you're saying that would be an additional revenue stream. X, and the county would be paying for the impact. I just crashed.
I'm sorry, you're freezing up.
Can you hear me? Okay,
Now
hold
you-
on. I think. Me now.
You're
Okay,
breaking up,
sorry.
Elizabeth.
I think I just crashed. Sorry. Um,
Are you there, Elizabeth?
okay.
Or we'll,
am I back? Okay, I'm
yeah,
back.
you're back.
Am I back?
Okay.
Okay. So the county pays for the recs and parks, but the county is paying for the impact fees. So how is that an additional revenue stream?
I'm sorry, I'm
Uh,
not following your question when you say the county pays for the impact fees.
Who's going to be paying for the impact fees for Parks and Recs impact fees?
Developers pay the impact fees. Sorry, Elizabeth has frozen again.
Yeah, I think we
Bad connection.
we lost you, Elizabeth.
I know. Okay, am I back? I think I'm
You
back.
are back. Yes, you are back.
Okay, sorry. I apologize. I'm in remote Vermont with lots of gnats. So, but the developer is being paid for by the county to build the park and recs. So the county is paying for the development and therefore paying for the impact fees. So how is that becoming an additional revenue stream?
Maybe Ms. Kerrigan from the budget office can help me, but again, it's the county is development impact fees are being used to support county provided services and infrastructure. So the county is providing the additional park, recreation, or library facilities or the additional capacity, and the impact fees that are paid by the developer are a revenue stream that can be used by the county to build those improvements. If
Okay, so
Thank you.
Ms. Miller, what to clarify, currently the impact fees are not allowed to be used for recs and parks and library. And this changes that.
Correct. We currently only have school, road, and public safety impact fees, which, and this was, I believe, in the presentation we went over 2 weeks ago. Those can specifically be used for projects that increase services or capacity to public schools, to road infrastructure, and to public safety infrastructure. So rec and parks and libraries don't fall within any of those infrastructure or service types. So these would be new impact fees that could be used for projects that would expand capacity of library services and rec and park services to meet the demands of new development.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. We
Sure.
in our discussions, we had a misunderstanding about
Yeah,
these.
thank you. That helps. I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, members, other questions?
Sorry, I have another question. Hopefully, maybe you can see me
Okay.
or not. It was interesting that the 2009 and 2011 increase was phased in. Why is that not being considered for this bill?
I would, it's an option if the council wants to go that route. We took the more straightforward approach of proposing the maximum supportable fees from the study because we've got the study methodology to back that up. The council can consider other options if they choose. They could propose to increase the fees by a lower amount if they so choose. They could propose to phase the fees in over a 3-year period. So those are policy decisions that would need to be made by the elected officials.
Yeah, for PAB, I think that's something that we should consider because based on the note or the letter from the Maryland Building Industry Association dated yesterday, signed by Kevin and Jim on page 2, I did not know this until they wrote it. We're looking at 103% increase for a townhouse, 83% increase for a single family home, and 62% increase for a multifamily unit. For those who are online and have had a chance to see this letter, this was sent to the Planning Advisory Board, and those are significant increases. I just feel like this is being rushed through. I don't think that Planning Advisory for NBIA has a lot of good points that they have submitted in writing to us online, and I believe it is posted online. And I believe that there was only one meeting of the advisory. I don't know what we called it, but there was a committee that was formed, but it didn't seem to be meeting very often or reviewing this in any depth. And that was one of the recommendations, was that they needed to really have a stakeholder work group for comprehensive review. And so I also am very concerned that affordable workforce housing, I believe it's referred to, and it's referred to as two different ways, that it would be MPDUs or workforce housing units would be 100% exempt. Yet they definitely have an impact, and they definitely affect our schools, our roads, our parks, and everything else. So then it's 100% back on the taxpayer to make up for that. They're getting a 50% increase in density with a 10% give back, and yet, according to this bill, will pay no impact fees. Am I correct?
The proposed bill does exempt MPD units from paying impact fees. I'll just note that that is common among jurisdictions that have both impact fees and MPDU requirements. That as the developers, I'm sure will tell you, provide, the mandate to provide MPDUs is another, challenge that they have to address in their, when they're putting together a development application. So to levy the impact fees on top of the requirement to provide units below market rate is, I think most people would feel like that's counter to the intent of providing MPDUs. So it is common for those types of affordable housing requirements to be exempt from impact fees.
I still, with the 50% increase in density and a 10% give back, to be 100% waived is a concern. So, and then lastly, I really have a concern with transportation and the numbers that have come with transportation, because transportation, and as we heard from all 8 regions in Plan 2040, is traffic, traffic, traffic. And so I'd like to have the transportation part of this bill reviewed and have further in-depth discussion with this stakeholder workforce group, work group, and to look at that, because I think that is of concern. That's it for me. Thank you all.
I will just add that I did note that in some testimony from GAN that they I'm sorry, I'm trying to look for it here. They made a statement that some of the parameters in the transportation fees were highly debatable. But they didn't tell us exactly what assumptions they considered debatable, and they didn't tell us why they consider them debatable. So at this time, we really can't speak to that without more information. But I will say to someone, whether it was MBIA, I think it was actually GAN in their testimony, made a suggestion to either pull out the cost elements and use something more current, or to strip out the transportation fees altogether. I would just make a point that we would not be able to do that and address those differently without initiating another contract and hiring a consultant again to basically redo either the study or portions of the study. You can't just, all of the model parameters used, all of the data projections, cost factors, et cetera, were done based on the same methodology at the same time. So you can't really just pull out singular components from the study and replace them with something newer or fresher. I really think it would take initiating another contract. And that would take, again, funding in the budget. We don't have funding in the FY27 budget to initiate another study. I don't know if we would get funding in the following year. So the point being, if we don't try to move forward with legislation now, it could very well be a number of years before we have the opportunity again. So just adding that.
Thank you, Lynn. I
that,
do appreciate that.
just one more thing, and I've made it I've been very vocal about this. I think that this is a study that was done in 2023, and the numbers are off and need to be recalculated. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And Ms. Miller, I'll say this, that I guess after just having going through the county budget, and we talked about fire trucks a lot, and we saw that a fire apparatus at $2 to $3 million, when they use a number of 900,000 to calculate a fire truck, it was just something that stood out as alarming and not accurate. and I do understand the not having to create a new study and wait more time and so on. Um, you know, for the last number of years, and I've been on this board over 10 years, I think, and last number of years, we've heard affordable housing, affordable housing, affordable housing. And I am in support of recalculating the impact fees because it hasn't been done for a while. I'll state my opinion there. My concern is, and if these numbers are accurate, I'm not sure they are, but because this is from Maryland Building Industry Association, but their numbers state that the townhouse impact fee is 103% increase. It would go from 15,000 to 30,000. A single family home of about 3,000 square feet would go from 18,000 to 33,000. And then a multifamily unit it's a 62% increase, would go from 13,000 to 21,000. As the chair of this board, I feel it's one, increases are needed, but two, it's unfair as a board to be asked to make a decision on an hour discussion, a half an hour discussion, even if we're here 2 hours, to support 80 or 100% increase in fees when we know that probably when it gets to the county council, there's going to be many, many hours of discussion on this topic. And I don't think, and I'm not sure, I'm not going to speak for the board. I'm ready for motion anytime someone wants to make it, that this will just be rubber stamped and say, hey, we agree with this 100% and it doesn't need to be changed. It's absolutely perfect. So, without us being able to dissect things and say, hey, we're going to amend this and so on, I don't know whether, and I can't speak for the board, and we will know in a little bit when we start taking some votes and motions, if it's going to go through as proposed. So that's my comment on that and my concern, and I need input from other board members.
May I ask a question, sir?
Yes, Lawrence.
Or I'm sorry, may I ask Miss, is that Lynn or Linda?
Lynn.
Lynn?
All right. Yes, ma'am. So you said these numbers the study came when? I apologize. What part of the year?
I'm sorry, say again.
What year did you say the study was done?
It was completed in 2023.
All right. So that means all the data pretty much came, and the numbers came from maybe a year or two previous from that?
Generally speaking, yes. Depends on what specific data parameter, but the data would have ranged from the early 2020s to 2023.
Okay. The only reason I say that is because I believe COVID ended mid 2023. And I think some of the numbers were a little bit tough. And some of those numbers, especially like when I ran against the school or talked to the school board about things like COVID and stuff like that, a lot of the numbers went haywire. And so I was thinking maybe I agree with Gus, maybe some of the numbers need to be redone a little bit. Because I feel like putting something out during the middle of COVID at the end of it, I just think may not be 100% on target. And then also I had to agree with Miss Elizabeth, like some are a little heavy and then some are lacking. So like I know that you can cram a whole lot more townhouses and small condos in than you can a nice single family home. And yet the single family homes are more expensive than, the condos and stuff. And I feel like there's a couple of things that need to be picked apart before we would just throw that right to a rubber stamp type of thing. So that was just my personal thought on that aspect. So I guess.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah.
Okay, Megan, you have your hand. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to Ms. Miller and all of the staff for the great presentations and information. I support the bill because the fees haven't been updated since 2008, with the exception of the ENR index increases. I know there's some question about the data and the study being from 2023, that it might seem a little dated, but in my day job, I understand how long these studies can take and to get to this point. And so I think, in my opinion, doing an updated study would only postpone the needed fee updates. And then having the study done to the maximum supportable fees for the existing levels of service. What's in the study, I think, is what is legally defensible amount. And so, I think those are the amounts that I feel comfortable with, because there is the study to support it. And then I also agree with the addition of the Parks and Rec and the libraries to the fee items. I know a lot of other jurisdictions do similar, at least for Parks and Rec, have similar fees. And so for those reasons, I support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Megan, I do have a question for you. Do you support a 100% increase immediately, or do you support a graduated increase?
So that was one of the questions, and I'm glad other members asked about, because the previous 2008 did have the phase-in approach. I could see going either way. I'm not sure if the study specifically had looked at that, whether a phase-in or not. I do think that is a reasonable approach. So I don't know if that's something we could add as part of a motion. I would support that.
Yeah, we can do that as part of a motion, that we recommend it be phased in over time. So thank you. Any other board members? Do I see any other hands up? Michael?
No, I did. I had sent the 7 questions. I don't have any issue with the methodology of the study. That I think they were asked to calculate the maximum supportable fees. So they're answering what the county can charge. I disagree on if that's necessarily what the county should charge. All my questions slanted from an economic background, and quite frankly, I think that's half of the bill that's missing. I think analyzing those things is massively important. We went through an election yesterday, and I think every person running for county executive in their top 3 biggest issues had affordable housing on there. To think that raising the fee 83% is not going to have an effect on development or the building of houses, I think I think really needs to be looked at. And it's not just about housing. I mean, that's tons of trades jobs, that's electricians, that's site guys. So yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with changing the fees or anything like that. It's just doing it without a really big look at what you're doing economically to the county seems like a really hurried approach.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Any other, Edward? I see you're online, and please, I haven't heard from you. Do you have any comments on what we're discussing?
Trying to get unmuted here. And since I got on late, I don't want to like start having people rehash things, especially on the bill side and the methodology. But from the process side, I think it was something about the independent impact analysis, right? I didn't remember if that was being removed. Is it the removal of that impact analysis option? Is that what was happening?
Yes, the legislation, the code currently allows an option for a developer who's paying impact fees if they feel like the impact fee schedule that applies to them per the code is not appropriate for their proposed development, they could calculate their own fees and present those to the county for potential consideration. To my knowledge, no developer applicant has used that option to date. If they were to use that option, the code includes a methodology that the developer should use if they want to do that alternate option. That methodology, as far as I know, dates back to 2008, if not earlier.
Right, 2008.
It's very dated. There's actually no one here in our office who I think could even explain exactly where the parameters for that methodology would come from. It's an outdated section of the code, and given that no one has used it to date, our suggestion was to remove it.
So my next question was how confident are we that incremental expansion methodology is it adequately captures like nearly 2 decades of deferred infrastructure needs, right? So if I'm hearing you correctly, we're not that confident in the methodology.
I'm saying that no one has used it to date, so it's very difficult for me to speak to it. We
Right.
don't have experience. No one here now has experience using that section of the code.
Okay, so will the removal of the independent impact analysis option, would it be any disadvantage to any class of developers?
Well, I don't know that I can speak to that because I have no reference point for what kind of alternative fees a developer might
Right, okay.
suggest and how they would derive those. So
Understood.
I don't know if anyone else on the call can speak to that, but sorry, I can't really speak to it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm not going to, I got a couple more, but I think I'm going to wait so I could get a better understanding.
Okay, I did have a question because I can't remember. Lynn, are the impact fees to be paid at the issuance of the permit or at the issuance of the occupancy?
Currently, they are paid when the building permit is issued. And per state legislation that was passed just in this past General Assembly session, that will change. I believe that becomes effective in fall of 2020. Actually, I'm not sure. Greg Swain may know. It either becomes effective this fall or next fall. But once that state bill becomes effective, the county will have to collect those impact fees at the time of issuance of the certificate of occupancy, which obviously is later than when they're currently collected. Greg, do you recall the effective date of
Yeah,
that?
the bill becomes effective October 1 of this year. And we didn't include it in this bill because we're going to do a follow-up bill just to implement the change in when the impact fees are paid.
And I may have missed this. So does that collection timing create any cash flow issues for capital projects?
Well, we're going to have to adjust. I mean, obviously, it's a change. I know I spoke with Mark Wiedemeyer today about this, and they're adjusting their processing system to take into account when they're paid and when they're not. So there's going to be an adjustment, but we will adjust to it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board members, other questions?
I definitely have some more, especially about the clarification of certificate of occupancy. Maybe that's
Okay.
another call later. But I definitely think that waiting that long, especially since a lot of the commercial buildings are stacking up unused, does that mean we have to wait till somebody rents it, or just straight up it's as soon as the completion of the construction? Because there's a pretty gray area, especially if you're not able to rent out your building for 2 years. That now delays our pocket money for 2 years, even though you've already built your complex. And that also, it affects the infrastructure that we're also trying to upgrade upon, that, people are building with. So how do those two things kind of like work out, especially with that kind of issue going to come up? Or
Well,
or
Lawrence,
is it
Lawrence, my comment would be that we really don't have any control over that. We have to be in line with the state law that was passed. So this legislation would have to be amended to make sure that come October 1st, we're in line with the state mandates.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is correct. We'll have a separate bill to address it. But the fees are paid when a certificate of occupancy is obtained, not when the building's actually occupied.
okay? Understood.
Okay, more questions? Where's Elizabeth? She's awful quiet. Is she running out in the mountains?
Here. I'm here. I'm just in a quandary. Okay. Let me explain first. I support the increase of the impact fees, obviously. They haven't been done in a very long time. And I want the impact fees to be increased to help with the roads, the schools, the parks, the libraries, and everything else. However, I have a lot of concerns about this bill. And I don't think we need a new study, but I do think we need to improve it. And we definitely need to have it be a graduated, in my opinion, I think we need to have it be a graduated fee schedule. But I make a motion to deny the current bill as it's presented.
I second that.
Okay, a motion has been made and second to deny the legislation for impact fee study as presented. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
Okay, so we have 4 ayes and 1 nay. Motion carries. And I think it's important with this to explain why we got to this point. If Jesse and Maddie, if you can capture that and to say, we support increasing the impact fees. However, we think that it needs to be reviewed. Can I ask the board for another motion? And that would be if the fees, when they are increased, if they would prefer them to be graduated and phased in over time. I think that would depend, Gus, on the amounts. If we're looking at the amounts like what MBIA is talking about, then yes, I would support that. But if the amounts change, I don't know if I would support that. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm in support of a gradual increase to a point, because I know they haven't been done in a while, and that's understandable and agreeable. And just because something is legally defensible doesn't mean it's a good idea. I really think a lot more consideration needs to go into other factors, especially like, if we're trying to build housing, doubling or tripling a fee is definitely not the way to go about it. I definitely think that there are other things, and especially with the make your own fee, I don't know why that's being taken out. So I'm a fan of increasing the fees gradually to a point, yes. But some of the other stuff in there is just I'm not sure why it's there. So I guess they can debate that from that.
Oh, they will.
Okay. Are there any other comments from the board? All right, no other comments. At this point, we want administrative update from the Office of Planning and Zoning.
Yes, so the Planning Advisory Board is anticipated to meet on, let me pull the calendar here. Wednesday, July 8th to discuss the annual measures and indicators report produced by Research and GIS out of the Office of Planning and Zoning. I currently anticipate that meeting will be 6 p.m. with hybrid capabilities, PAB meeting in person if able to, or virtually if not. I know a few of you are anticipated to be virtual. If you didn't previously let me know, I would appreciate knowing if you're planning to be virtual, because then we can just pivot to fully virtual. I'm pulling up my list right now so I can let you know where I think folks are going to be. So I had that Ed would need to be virtual and Van. So if anybody else needs to be virtual, please let me know, in case we need to pivot to being fully virtual.
Jesse, how long do you anticipate that meeting to be?
Hour and a half, 2 hours. It's the annual measures and indicators report that you guys review every year. So it's just an update from the previous years explaining, sorry, it's eluding me now, but it explains like how much development has occurred within the priority funding area, how much development has occurred outside of the priority funding area. There's a lot of tables in it that show you data related to that growth, related to development, and there are some maps as amendments in the back of the plan. I think it's roughly 30 pages with the maps in the back of the plan. So it's not too text heavy with those tables and maps. It's really just a kind of perfunctory review before we send it off to Maryland Department of Planning. It's just a standard document.
Are you going to provide us with the information way before the meeting so we can review it? And if so, then I think we could probably do it virtual.
Okay.
Board members, is everybody in agreement that we can do that virtual if we get the information ahead of time?
I think that may be a good idea.
I am not able to attend at all. So for your quorum's sake, I'm out.
Got it.
I might be in California.
Europe. Portugal, maybe.
Jamaica, but I can do it virtually.
Okay. So Jesse, let's make that a virtual meeting.
Okay. So we'll make it a virtual meeting, and yes, we have access to the document right now. We just didn't want to overwhelm you while you were discussing impact fees, so we can get that out ASAP, so people can start to review.
Okay. Very good. Is there anything else? Admin wise?
I missed the memo, so I'm actually just going to be at home and not in a different country like apparently everyone else.
Okay. Okay, well, we're getting ready to adjourn, but I would like to just put on record that overall, I think the PAB understands that the impact fees are going to go up and probably should go up. They should be phased in over time. And I think it was unfair for the board to be asked to vote on a 80% or 100% increase, yay or nay, at this time. And that's why that bill was not approved. But we are in agreement that we do understand that the fees need to be analyzed, looked at, and increased. So with that said, if there's no other questions or discussions, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, sir.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, all board members.